Somebody once said a great expression to me many years ago when they were telling me how to repair a fruit machine. They said, "This is the machine I cut my teeth on." Well, this TV that we have in stock is the TV I suppose I cut my teeth on not that long ago, about 4 or 5 years, because they were dropping like flies after they'd been in service for about 2 or 3 years. It was the start of the backlight problems. And this is the particular TV, the Toshiba 40L1333db. It says Toshiba, but it's a Vestel chassis. And the problems that this TV always suffers with, probably second time around now I would have thought, it's getting to that age, is the backlight issues. And on this particular occasion, I think this is the second time we've had this TV in for a backlight problem. So we're going to put a full set in it. The TV now belongs to me. This is originally sold by Richer Sounds. A very stylish TV. Even today this TV still stands up. It still looks great. It's very slim. But it was the early backlight technology. It had got cheap Chinese backlights in the back, all put together by Vestel. And sadly, the backlights never really lost. I noticed on this that it came with a 6-year warranty. Well, we used to do repairs for Richer Sounds, and we were repairing them all the time. Now, there's an interesting history with this TV because I suddenly realised, after getting it back from someone, I sold this TV to somebody about 3 years ago. The backlights went. He said, "Have you got any other TVs in stock?" I said, "Yes." So he had another TV. He gave me this one back. And I thought, well, that was good. And then I suddenly realised that even though it says on the back that it's a 133db, it isn't. This is actually a TV. This is going to sound quite boastful. I don't mean it in a boastful way, but this is a TV that, just checking that the cat's okay. Looks like I'm going to be co-engineered by Misty the cat. This is a TV that I built myself from spare parts. Now that sounds a bit boastful, but basically what it means is loads of different Vestel bits left over. But so the TV's had a bit of an upgrade. It says it's a 133db, which is that's a basic Vestel 40-inch Freeview TV, HD ready set. But I put a different board in this, and I suddenly remembered that this was made from all kinds of leftover different variants of Vestel's 40 inches. So it's got a screen in from a smart TV. It's got a main board from the Freeview HD version, which I remember being the 153db. It's got a power board from the 1333db. Anyway, basically it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle of a TV. Not that it doesn't make any difference. You can't quite see, but next to the 3 HDMI sockets, there's actually an Ethernet socket, but it's not a smart TV. The Ethernet was for the was for the data downloads on the 153db. So it's a bit of a mixture from what I remember inside. And you had to be careful with these, because if you didn't ground the screen tabs correctly, the picture quality was awful. It just wasn't watchable. You'd actually thinking that the screen's got a fault, but it hasn't. They just need to be earthed the right way on the tabs if you're swapping them over. There's not many people in this world, I would imagine, that are swapping them over. So I'm going to do this in real time. I don't think we'll get much chance to edit the stuff, because this is one of those TVs that Oh, I've taken these to bits 101 times, maybe even more. As I say, this is one I built from different Vestel parts. So it's a bit of a Frankenstein's monster of a TV. Not worse, and it doesn't matter. It's none the worse for that. It is a nice TV. But I suspect if we do manage to get it working again, as long as it is a backlight fault, I'm just guessing it's a backlight fault. But when it's up and running again, we should see a very good HD picture. I always thought these TVs were quite good, to be honest with you. A lot of people knock Vestel, but I thought the design on this was very good. I'm not too sure if the design didn't originally come from the Samsung side of things, because Samsung did a very, very similar TV, again with some Vestel boards inside it, but it had Samsung screens. That one is the one that ends with just a B. If it ends with a DB, it's got a Vestel screen in. If the model number ends in a B, it will have a Samsung screen in it. Does that make any difference? No, some people think the Vestel screens are equally as good as Samsung, if not slightly superior on the HD quality. So there you can see it's got the standard Vestel 1333db power board on the left-hand side, but on the right-hand side, it's got a different main board. Now, that main board is usually powered from a different power supply unit, a slightly smaller one. I can't remember the model of it, but it seems to power this main board okay. As I say, this gentleman's had it working for about 3.5 years. So there's no problem with chopping and changing some of these boards as long as you get everything correct. When I say get everything correct, you just need to make sure that the wires are feeding what they're supposed to be feeding from the power board to the main board. This is one of those sets where I don't really have to, and not that you'll be able to see this, but I don't have to be tidy with the screws. I can just plonk all the screws down next to me. I think I'm going to stick them on a shelf behind me. Not necessarily in different jars, because, as I say, I've worked on this TV so many times that I know what each and every screw does, including the two screws that hold down the screen tabs. The screen tabs are very important, which is why I mentioned earlier they have to be grounded on this, because there's no T-con on this. You may know. It looks like there is. There's a T-con metal shield, but there's no T-con there. The lead goes straight from the main board straight to the screen. The T-con bits are all built into the screen tab, which is why that tab has to be earthed correctly. Otherwise, the picture colors just aren't great. But that's only because, as I mentioned earlier, it's a Frankenstein's monster I've been mixing and matching with this particular TV. So anyway, we'll get all the screws out. There's quite a few in this Vestel set. And then we'll take the screen off. It'll be interesting to see the backlights that are inside. I don't know if it's still got the original Vestel backlights that it should have, or maybe did I replace them 3 years ago with individual backlights from China? I used to do that from time to time, because 3 or 4 years ago, the backlights for these models were still very expensive. Over the last year, you buy backlights for these at your local chemist, I would think. They're everywhere. Only joking, don't go to your local chemist and ask for backlights. I think hopefully you get what I mean. Much more cost-effective these days. Which is why, if it is the backlights at fault, I'm quite happy just to stick a new set in, because they're rather cheap. But there's another fault on these with this particular PSU. The LED drivers can go on these. They are quite delicate. You have to be careful when working on them, when using these LED testers. If you don't disconnect the backlights from the power supply unit, you can end up blowing the LED driver. And from memory, it's either an 8 or a 12 legged chip. I can't remember. I think it may be 12, maybe more than that. So it's a bit of delicate soldering if needed, but you can tell the difference. If an LED driver has blown on this power board, the LEDs will light up slightly and give a quick flash and then dim a bit. Just going to put some more lights on here. I should turn this over. Whereas if your backlights have failed, they don't come on at all. You just get the quick flash. You don't get them coming on dim. Time to delicately remove the screen. It's not until you get to this point that I'm at absolutely 100% that the screen's okay. But I did have a look earlier, and I could see an image in the background which seemed to be fine. But until you get to this stage when you lift the screen out, you can't really tell to see if there's any small cracks or damages. But that's the screen out. I would have thought, seeing that this screen has been opened before, that the clips around the edge would be quite loose, but they're not. They're still quite tight. It's firmly on. Interesting looking online at some of the bits from Richer Sounds on this. I noticed they didn't have the price up there, but I remember how much this TV was sold for. When it was brand new, it was £575 brand new, complete with a 6-year warranty. See, again, I'm struggling with some of these clips. You would think these clips would be loose as a goose, because I bet you, well, if this TV is 6 years old now, I bet I've changed a set of backlights in it before. It's going to be interesting to see if I've swapped them over for a full original set, or if I've put some individual Chinese LEDs in there, which, as I say, I used to do from time to time. So £575 does seem, these days, a lot of money for what a basic TV this is. And when I say a basic TV, it's not got a Freeview HD tuner in. Well, this one has, because I've upgraded it, but the original model number, the 1333db, just has a standard definition tuner. 3 HDMI, so you can give a HD signal through the HDMI ports, obviously. I think it's got 2 USBs, this. Very nice TVs. But they just seem to have made these before. Oh, they look like the original strips. Good. Now, is it worth testing the strips? I'm going to replace them anyway, even if there's just one LED gone. I'm not going to try and get the hot plate out and take off individual LEDs and solder new ones on here. It's just not worth it. Okay. If this set of backlights is 2 or 3 years old, that one seems to be fine. Let's try this one. Yeah, we got one gone there. One gone there. That's okay. And that's okay. So just 2 LEDs that have gone, but, you know, I could replace them and the TV would be working again, but for how long for? It's not worth it. You know, if this, stripping this down and putting new ones in takes between half an hour and 45 minutes, and because I'm making a video from it, it's bound to take a little bit longer. And as mentioned, for the cost of what these are, you might as well just stick some new strips in. He says at this moment in time, I've just realised as I'm just lifting this up, getting the screen clips out, I just realised that I don't even know if I've got... I should have at least one set, if not half a dozen sets of LED strips for these. For this particular screen. This is the what I call the Niner set. There are 9 LEDs. Yeah, there they are. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 9. 9 on each strip. Different Vestel 40-inch screens have different amount of LEDs. Some only have 7, some have 6, some have 8. What the thinking is behind that, I haven't the faintest idea. And amazingly, I just looked behind me at my stash of LED strips, and there was one there that said Vestel 9, so I know that this is the correct one. That doesn't usually happen. I have to go hunting high and low in the LED cupboard for the correct ones, so I'm amazed I found it straight away. But anyway, we've got a complete new set. Let's stick these in. Just making sure that the LEDs are disconnected now from the power supply board. Even though I've never had it on this particular set, but on Samsung's, if you don't disconnect, if you're replacing, or even if you're soldering new ones in, if you don't disconnect the LED lights themselves from the PSU, the capacitor can still hold a charge, and I've had a nasty belt from the LED drivers from time to time. Enough to make you say rude words, anyway. Notice I'm being very delicate, especially, I say very delicate. That probably doesn't look delicate. But especially if I'm going from the bottom to the top here, when I get to this bit, I will just slow down, because I don't want to cause any damage to the connection at the top. That's the little bit of it which can be quite delicate. So it doesn't matter if they snap. The LED strips themselves, I don't want the green connector at the top, we don't want that to snap. Really, otherwise I have to go soldering wires on. And we don't want to do that. So 5 strips, you may notice that they are labelled. The first one's an A, then a B, C in the middle, then B, then A at the end. And it does matter, you can't... I mean, if you mix them up, they will still work, but you won't be able to get the reflector sheet back on because the holes will be different. So A, B and C have the LEDs in different positions. So obviously replace A for A, B for B, etc. Otherwise, when you come to put the reflector sheet back on, you'll be a bit confused. Now, I've just noticed, don't know if you have noticed, that this particular set of LEDs doesn't have any double-sided tape on the back. Doesn't really matter for these because there's plenty of stickiness left in the screen anyway from the previous set, so I'll get away with it. I do have some double-sided tape, but the fact that there's some residue glue left over, and when I put the reflector sheet back on, there's 4 clips and everything stays in place. And they've come on immediately, all of them working as you'd expect from a new set. Wouldn't have it any other way. And with a new set of backlights in, I would expect these to last a good 2 or 3 years. And I'm quite happy when I get rid of this set, because it's mine to sell now. I'll definitely sell it with a year's warranty on the backlights. And I will warrant the circuit boards. The only thing I won't warrant when selling this TV is the screen, because you just never know. Never warrant accidental damage anyway. I've known people break screens from just excessively over-cleaning the screen. Put a bit too much pressure and crack. But the screens can fail. I have known them fail in these particular sets. And it is getting to an age now, so circuit boards and the backlights, I'll quite happily put a year's warrant on them, warranty on them, because easy to replace, easy to source. But if the screen goes, not so easy. Right, sticking the screen supports back in. They're usually put in with a bit of hot glue. And normally I will stick some hot glue, but I've got my little tube of E7000 here, so that will be fine to put them in place on this particular occasion. I bought so many tubes of this E7000 glue from the days when I used to replace backlights individually. Very rarely do I do that now. I've done that in a couple of videos just for tuition purposes. But rule number one, if you're repairing a TV to sell on, or if it's a customer's TV, unless the backlights are not available, you really do have to put a whole set of new ones in there. Because you just don't know how long it's going to last for. Could be a year, could be a day. Anyway, just putting the final clip in, gluing it down. So now the screen supports are in, I'm going to get the reflector sheet. Well, the reflector sheet is back in, but the diffusers have to go back in the same order. Obviously, they came out. So when you take them off individually, try and keep them in the correct order. They'll all go back on, even in the wrong order, but you will notice the picture quality is kind of strange if you don't get the diffusers the correct way around. One thing about Vestel, they were always very generous with the diffusers. You'd always find 3 or 4 in these sets. I think there's 4 on this. And if you didn't put them the right way around, I mean, the bottom one is obvious. The bottom is always the heavy, thicker plastic one. And then the rest are the paper style, just used to deflect, to diffuse the backlights and give an even light over the whole of the screen. And it tends to do that. You do have some dark patches in the corner, but not really that noticeable. Even though I've always wondered why they don't put an LED in each corner, just to sort out that issue on some sets. I've just noticed, so I'm putting the screen back, that the bezel is poking up a bit, but that's gone down. And again, there's a knack to doing this, talking and doing it at the same time. It doesn't really help, but that seems to have gone in fine. You have to make sure it's gone in correct. If it's slightly overlapping by millimeters either on the left or the right, when it comes to when you screw it back together, it will be a crack. You'll hear a crack and then you'll cry. So I'm just plugging the screen back in just to test that it comes on, and it does. Now you will notice, that's what I was talking about earlier. This is what happens if you don't get the screen tabs grounded correctly. And I'm just fiddling about with the tabs. But that's not an issue. It's only because I haven't got the screws in. There are 2 very, very small screws. If you lose them, you're in trouble. And they help ground the screen, and that will correct the colour. So I'm not going to... That's not worrying me at the moment. The fact that I've got a reddish picture with blue writing, where it should be a blue picture with white writing, I think. But that will sort itself out as soon as, and you can tell there as soon as I'm touching things that it's trying to get back to its original colours. I've switched it off just to make sure that I don't short anything out that I'm not supposed to. So, ground screws in. Most of the TV screws are in. Should be able to give it a test, and hopefully the correct colours will be back now. There you go. I just wonder how many people over time have dismantled the TV, lost those two very tiny screws, put the TV back together again, had the mix matching with the colours, and suddenly thought, oh no, the screens are right off, we'll throw this TV away. When it was just down to a couple of screws. So I'm going to give this a tune in and just make sure, because I say this is Frankenstein's monster. It's the screen from a 4353 dB. It's the main board from a 1353 dB. It's the power supply from a 1333 dB with the T-con taken out, because you don't need a T-con with this particular main board. I'm telling lies. On some you do. You don't need a T-con with this screen. So I'm just going to tune this in, and if I remember correctly, even though obviously the label on the back says it's a 1333 dB, a 40L, this will have a DVB2 tuner in it, so it'll have that the high definition tuner. So it should start to pick up some HD channels along the way somewhere. I've just got this on a very weak workshop aerial, which is not even pointing in the right direction. It's not even the aerial that I have in the workshop is not even fastened down. And in the wintertime, when the wind blows, that aerial goes to different parts, or different parts of the garden. But it will just pick up certain channels. I'm just hoping it's going to pick up some high definition ones. As I mentioned earlier, it's a nice design, this TV. It still looks slimline. You have to bear in mind that this set is close on 6 years old, maybe 7. But when it's standing on its stand, it does look kind of wafer thin. It blends into some of the modern day sets fine. And I can see there it's picking up some HD. I think it's got BBC One through to Channel 5 and CBC HD, so the HD tuner is working fine in this. I mean, really what I need to do is just take the sticker off the back. And if ever I come across, or what I really should do is find a back to a 40L1333, is it? Yeah, 1353 dB. If I find the back to one of those, I'll be laughing. Not that I think Joe Bloggs is technically bothered really about make and model numbers. I just want a TV that works and that's going to work for quite some time. Thank you very much. Cat's not interested. While it's tuning in, if If you need to know about the cat, she's called Misty. She is my cat, but she's also a stray at the same time. We've taken on some new cats since Misty was born, and she doesn't get on well with the other cats, so she doesn't come indoors anymore, which is why she spends well, she comes indoors for food, but if she knows I'm in the workshop, she comes into the workshop and will insist on me bringing her some food. I'll have to go and fetch her some food in a second, because I don't think she's eaten today. Anyway, that's enough about the cat. It's not the fastest of tuning in these channels, is it, Misty? And as you can tell, at the bottom it's only found something like, what is it, 30 channels, 40 stations? Again, it's only because the aerial's not pointing in the right direction. But it's picking up the basics for me to test that the TV is going to be in working order. Just turn the volume down so I don't get told off by YouTube. Let's just tune it into a HD channel somewhere along the line. And there it is, the TV seems fine. So if anybody asks me what the model number is, it's very hard to be honest with them, because I suppose technically it's a 1333db, which is the full HD version with Freeview HD. I've put it on shop mode, or store mode I think they call it here, don't they? Just so we can see all the gen on the top. But with the new backlights, there's no reason why this TV shouldn't carry on for quite some time. And just to prove that I do feed the cat eventually, there's Misty getting her tea. So I'm going to put the screws all back in the TV and just make sure that it's 100%. We'll give it a good clean. Put the stand on it. I'll find a brand new remote. Whenever I sell on a TV, if I repair a TV that I'm selling on, I always give a brand new remote. That's not connected to the coronavirus, it's just something I do. But as you can see, it's up and running and the cat's been fed.